other committee members here too today. Leslie Lyons, Lana Marcuccio, and we're waiting for Laura Ferrante Fernandez. And also we're co-hosting this with Sustainable Bethany. We have Eric in the back. And so welcome everyone. And today our speaker is going to be Kent Golden, who is going to be talking to us about EV, electric vehicles. So, again, our meetings for Woodbridge Ad Hoc Sustainability are the first Wednesday of every month. If you are interested in this, I do see a lot of new faces today, so we're very happy to have you come today, and to all of our lectures and our meetings too, if you're interested in this type of thing. And here's our Bethany committee. And also, if you're interested, there's a green bucket in the back, food waste diversion. We're trying to make a push in Woodbridge to get more composting and food waste out of the trash. So there is a commercial company that is willing to come and pick up from your house if you do not compost in your backyard. It is for a fee. If you're interested, you can go to their website, Blue Earth Compost, and you sign up. Once we get enough residents who are willing to do it, they can make Woodbridge part of their usual pickup. And so, welcome to Kent. And
Excuse me, was any thought given to having one of those collection bins at the transfer station?
Yes, actually. So I'm glad you asked that. That is something that has been considered and is actually in the process. We're applying for grants to be able to do that with Blue Earth actually too. And so that hopefully will be a pilot program where we can have drop off there. Okay. Does anybody, how many people here compost in their backyard right now? All right. And for those who don't, do you separate your food waste at all, or do you throw it in the trash?
I don't cook.
You don't? I come to your house. How do you do that? I'd like to know. So would you be interested in separating food waste out?
Well, if it was at the transfer station, for the little bit of fire mishap from cooking I might have, it would be nice to know, because I wouldn't need a whole big thing at the house.
Right. No, but that's, I'm glad to know that people are interested in that, because when we've polled the community before, sometimes people are saying like, well, I'm not really interested in having to separate it from the get-go. So that kind of takes away any second part of it. You know, like if you just want to dump everything in the trash, well, that's difficult for us to help you with. Then it's going to all end up in the trash. But if it is that you're willing to separate it and not put it in the trash, but we can come up with different ways to make this work, to keep it out of our trash stream, which then food is actually one of the biggest weight things in our trash, which we pay a tipping fee from the weight. So if we can get that out, that's probably like, I think, what people have clocked it as like 50% of the weight. Because it's so wet, really. It's heavy. So, anyway, thanks for asking that. We do have some other lectures coming up soon too. Next week is going to be heat pumps. Now that the weather is getting a little chillier, if anyone's interested in learning about adding a heat pump to your household energy use. And then also for the holidays coming up, we're doing a lecture on upcycling gifts. I think it's going to be a little more hands-on to try to not buy new. All right, and then next year we're going to be doing energy audits and going net zero, recycle CT, what's in, what's out, and actual composting in your backyard too. And then the biggest, most important, wonderful day of the year is Saturday, April 26th, Earth Day. We're going to have a big community event again on the town green. If you came last year, we'd love to see you again. If you didn't come this year. See what it's all about. We have food trucks, music, tables, vendors, farmers markets, performers, lots of wonderful things. So we'd love to see you. All right. And an EV show, which Kent graciously hosted. All right. So hopefully we'll see you again this year for that. And with that, I present Kent Golden.
All right. Thank you very much, Hillary. All right, I'm just...
Actually, hold on, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I forgot. Eric, please come. Eric and Bethany wanted to share their, I'm sorry about that.
No.
They're going to have an event next week.
Yeah, so most of us have wells, and most of us test that well water when we buy our house, and then we have this nice schedule that we're going to do, and we don't do it. And so it may be a decade since the last time you had your well water tested. We've partnered with Yukon Extension to do well testing next week. So they are going to have a van at the Bethany Library you can pick up the kit, return it, an hour later with your water sample, and they will test it and give you information. It costs $200. What you will get for that is arsenic, bacteria, calcium chloride, copper, fluoride, hardness, iron, lead, manganese, magnesium, nitrate, pH, sodium, sulfates, and uranium. So you will actually have that you can compare back to when you bought your house, or if you don't have that information, you can then have a nice sort of baseline for what your water looks like. I know that I try and test my water on a regular basis. About 15 years ago, we found out we had bacteria in ours. We put in a UV system, and that cleared that up. So it's good to know what you have. Since nobody else tests it because you're on wells, it's a good idea. So it's next Saturday from 10 to 1 at the Bethany Library, which is right up Amity Road. I'll leave this information in the back. So if you want to take a look at this and write down that information, we'd love to see you there.
Eric, do you know how often it is recommended that you should test your well water? Is it something like every year or so?
I've heard every year.
Sure.
I don't know many people who do that though.
Yeah.
So,
You should.
yeah.
It's recommended to do it once a year, and if it's fine, then the EPA recommends doing it every 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, hey, Laura. See if this is working. Working good. My little video thing here is working. Okay, great. All right, so hello everybody and welcome. My name is Kent Golden. It's very nice to see all of you here. Thank you so much to Hillary and to the committee for having me here to talk to you a little bit about understanding electric vehicles, EVs, and some of the myths and misconceptions and so forth that sort of surround them here. So a little bit about me and why I'm here and why I care about this sort of thing. Who is this guy? I'm a professor over at Quinnipiac University. I teach in the Interactive Media and Design department. I used to serve on the Sustainability Committee here in town. I also serve on the Sustainability Committee at Quinnipiac. It's just one of the things that I'm very much interested in, and how can we be good stewards of our planet, and what choices can we make in our own lives to improve things. Yeah, I guess in addition to that, I'm also an author of an environmentally focused fiction. So you can see my little book down here, Ricky the Time Traveling Trash Panda, which is based on some of those themes as well. So I'm really into helping the environment as much as possible, as well as the impact that we have, perhaps sometimes unknowingly, on the other inhabitants of the planet, which would be the animals. So there's a lot of animals and plants and so forth that are subject to the choices that we make. So that's something that's very important to me. I do not work for Tesla or Rivian or any of these other companies. I make no money from doing this. I am simply somebody who cares about the environment, about the animals, and I happen to be a car guy as well. So that's kind of that's the intersection. That's why I'm here today to talk to you. You can see some of my various vehicles and things I've had over the years here. This is just a selection of some of the, I guess, the sportier cars. But I've driven pretty much everything over the years. I've driven big pickup trucks, Jeeps, had a K5 Blazer, all kinds, anything you can think of, I've driven over the years. And if you got nothing else out of this, the Tesla that I now own, and I'm going to talk about quite a bit, is basically the best car I've ever owned, just hands down. It's a fabulous car in many, many ways. And yeah, that's the short version, but now I'll give you the longer version here. Like I said, I don't work for Tesla. I'm not an Elon supporter. Yeah, so this is, yeah, take from this what you will. This is not a promotional type talk. I am not making any sales or anything on here. So why should we be talking about this? Well, so like I said, it's the best car I've ever had. Speaking as a car person, it is a very, very fun car. It's reliable, it's safe, it is long-term better for the environment by far when it comes to a comparison to an internal combustion engine. And I'll say up front too that I am not necessarily anti-combustion in every single scenario. There are some scenarios now where it is not possible for for long haul truckers, for example, to switch right over to electric vehicles. It's just not possible at the moment. I still enjoy sports cars. So, me having a gas-powered stick shift car that I drive every now and then, it still fits into who I am. So I'm not anti internal combustion, but there's so many good things about the EV that make it just so much superior in many, many ways. It really is like switching from a flip phone to a smartphone. So maybe some of us are nostalgic for when that happens. Like I wish my phone was just a phone. But if you think about it, for more than a few days or something, it is pretty amazing the capabilities that we carry around with us. Being able to record a video, GPS, everything that a smartphone does. And switching to an EV is kind of like that transition when it comes to transportation as well. So really, once you have experienced a full EV, it's pretty amazing. Do we have any EV owners here in with us here? Okay, great, a couple of us. How is it for you? Like, what do you have? What do you like?
Love it. I've got a Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Ioniq 5, yeah, and I hear really good things about that. Excellent, yeah. And you're enjoying yours as well?
Yeah, I have a Rivian R something.
R21 or something?
Yeah.
So I see them out here in the
It's my
parking lot,
husband's
so
car.
yeah. But yeah, for the most part, whenever I talk to somebody who is an EV owner, they are very enthusiastic about it, and really, you don't really look back, unless it's for nostalgic purposes, that sort of thing. So EVs are growing in popularity, but there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and there's some downright misinformation and people who are sort of anti-EV for various reasons. So that's creating hesitation. People are like, I don't want to get into this because it sounds terrible. Like, why would I want to do this? I love my gas car, why would I switch? So that's why we're doing the talk here today. So I'm going to explore some of these key myths, some of these things that I just keep hearing constantly. And having owned my car for 6 years now, 45,000 miles, I just know that they're not true. And you've probably experienced the same thing with yours as well. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive into some of the myths and misconceptions. I'm happy to answer any questions, so feel free to stop me at any time. I'm going to go a little quick, so just if I'm going too fast or you can't hear me or anything, just wave me down. I'd be happy to slow it down or stop here. I think probably the best way to start, as long as you guys are okay with it, is I recorded a couple years ago a short little video about this car. Because the Sustainability Committee, we had planned on having an EV show, but COVID hit. And so we were socially distancing, we couldn't get together, and so I created this short little video that basically goes through the car. So, so I think this, as long as you guys are okay with it, this is a good place to start. So if you have some popcorn, if you want to just sit back for a little bit, watch this. And then after, then we're going to dive into the actual myths and all that stuff right afterwards. All right, so let me exit out of here. Video. Hopefully it's not too loud or too soft. Just wave me down and kind of, give me an up or down if it is, all right? Hi there, I'm Ken Golden, a resident here in Woodbridge, Connecticut, and a member of the Sustainability Committee here in town. Today we're going to take a look at EVs, electric vehicles, specifically an all-electric Tesla. And I'm hoping to give you a good overview of what it's like to own an electric vehicle in our area, why they are better than traditional gas-powered cars in many ways, and why you should consider upgrading to one with your next vehicle. So this is my car, an all-electric Tesla Model 3 Performance. I bought it in 2018 and have absolutely loved owning it. To sum up the experience of going from an internal combustion car to an all-electric Tesla, it's like upgrading from a flip phone to a smartphone. Ask any Tesla owner and they will probably tell you the same thing. Well, why is that? Well, here are some quick facts about this car in particular. First up, it gets over 320 miles per charge. That's from here to Washington, D.C. in one go. It costs about $8 to $10 to charge up from empty to full. So the average driver saves about $1,000 per year just in gas. It has virtually no maintenance required, no oil changes, and it's more reliable than internal combustion engines. It's quiet and comfortable for commuting and cruising, and it has lots of trunk space. And this car goes from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.2 seconds. It's supercar territory, about the same as a Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. It can also drive itself. It has Netflix. and some fun stuff built right in. And it literally gets better every few weeks with free software updates. And it's much better for the environment. It has no tailpipe, and we can charge this up with electricity that has been generated from solar power, hydropower, and wind power. The Tesla Model 3 was Tesla's answer to a more affordable electric car, starting at just $35,000 for the base model. And it has become a more attainable goal for many. With rebates and incentives from the government, you can lower that price even more. Though to be fair, that price can also go up quite a bit if you add on extras like a dual motor setup, which is great for the winters in Connecticut. You can get a bigger battery, you can get an upgraded interior, and you can get other features like self-driving. But even still, you can get a Model 3 like this one, maxed out with all of the added trimmings at about the same price as a base model, Model S. So that's a bargain in my book. And I also like the slightly smaller size as compared to the Model S. So let's take a look at it, starting with the driving experience. Let's jump into it. Notice that there's no keyhole on the outside. My phone is actually what I'm using for the key right now. As long as I have my phone on me, the car is available to me. To open up the door, you push on this larger part and then pull on the other end. This design is simple and allows for a sleek exterior with less wind resistance. And the first thing I tell people when they get in is to look up. It's not readily apparent from the outside, but the entire roof of this car is this beautiful glass panel, and it really makes it feel so spacious in here. Is it hard to drive? Nope. As long as you've got that authorized phone in your pocket, you don't even need to turn a key or push a button to start. You just jump in and you got two pedals. One to speed up, one to slow down. To put it into gear, you put your foot on the brake and then you use this stalk to choose your gear. You go down to drive, up to back up, with a nice big backup camera with wheel lines and everything, and push to park, and you can hear the brakes actually squeezing the discs. As you're driving, you have a bunch of nice features, including automatic wipers, high beams that automatically dim when there's oncoming traffic, and lots of audio options. And that's it for regular driving. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it has space for 5 adults. Lots of cup holders and internal storage. And some niceties like phone charging and USB ports built right in. Well, let's talk about performance. The big selling point for me in this car is the performance. Now, EVs in general have a lot of torque and low-end power that allows them to get going really quickly and make them really fun to drive. Some people think that electric cars are slow or boring, and that is definitely not true. This Tesla Performance Model 3 does 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, but even the other versions are surprisingly quick. The rear-wheel drive base model does a respectable 0 to 60 run in 5.3 seconds, while the dual motor all-wheel drive long-range version does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. To put that into context, that's as fast as a Lamborghini Diablo. All this instant power makes for such a fun driving experience. Have you ever dreaded getting on the Merritt Parkway for one of those on-ramps that has a stop sign instead of a merge? No problem in this car. Give it a quick press to the floor and you're just slammed back into your seat with ferocious acceleration.
No offense, but if you still think driving around
Sorry for
is the best way to
Is the
make money
volume
in
okay?
today's
Can
economy,
you guys
I'm sorry,
hear us?
but you got
Get
it
it
wrong.
higher?
There's a little-known trend attracting millions of people right now.
Self-driving. Can it really drive itself? This car uses 8 cameras, forward-facing radar, and 12 ultrasonic sensors to detect everything around it. It detects cars, trucks, buses, motorcycles, pedestrians, bikes, even traffic cones and garbage bins. This helps for things like accident avoidance, but it also allows it to literally drive itself. Here's a demo. Now this might freak some people out. I know I was a bit nervous at first when I tried it, but in its current form, the driver should still be paying attention and ready to take over at any time. Now, considering that we humans have 2 somewhat imperfect cameras run by an easily distracted brain, it makes sense that a computer constantly scanning all around the car with 8 cameras and all these sensors can probably do a better job in many ways. Now, Tesla is working on making this car completely autonomous, which means that it can drive itself even without a person in it, but that isn't available just yet. I love driving, so I don't usually use the self-driving all that often, but it's actually great for long road trips, and it's also great for stop-and-go, bumper-to-bumper traffic. And it also has auto park, where it can park itself, and something called summon, where you can have the car come to you. More on that in a bit. Back to the interior. Apart from the glass roof, the white interior also gives it a futuristic vibe that I really like. You can get black, of course, if you prefer that, but I really love this white. Now, many people are afraid that the white interior would be difficult to keep clean, but apparently Tesla has used some magical material that repels stains really well. There are videos of people pouring ketchup and coffee right on these seats, and it just wipes right off. One other note about the interior, it's vegan leather, meaning that no animals had to be killed and skinned to make these seats. And that's obviously much better for the animals. So bravo to Tesla for making a premium car without cow leather in the seats. They feel great too, nice and soft. This also has heated seats on every seat, including even the middle back seat. And they get really hot if you crank them up. My wife loves these. The air system is really innovative. Instead of having those annoying little plastic diverters in your dash, this car actually uses 2 streams of air to deflect the airflow exactly where you want it, and you control it here on the touchscreen. A bonus about this interior too is the fact that you can drop the back seats and have more storage or a relatively flat sleeping area, perfect for camping during a road trip and sleeping out under the stars in comfort. Tesla has even created what they call camping mode, so that you can sleep with the heat or AC on for a night or two and still have enough charge to drive. You can play music, watch Netflix, and play games too. More on that later. Up front, you'll notice that the design is very minimalistic. You do almost everything through this massive touchscreen, which works just like an iPad or a tablet. And this map is incredible. No more trying to look at your tiny phone or a GPS screen. It's all right here in super high resolution on a responsive screen. Going on a road trip? You put in your destination here, and it will not only give you directions, but it will also tell you how much charge it will use, and it will give you a suggestion for charging if you're going on a really long trip. And that brings us to range. Some people are afraid of what's called range anxiety in an all-electric car, which means that you won't be able to make it to your destination because you've run out of battery juice. But I have to tell you that this hasn't been a problem for us in our Tesla, not one bit. First off, this car gets over 320 miles of range on a single charge. In theory, that's from here to Washington, D.C. nonstop. Now, I commute only a few times over on a daily basis, so I never have to look for a charging location on a day-to-day basis. Never. That's probably true for the vast majority of drivers out there. I get home at the end of the day, I plug in the car at night, just like you do with your cell phone, and then I have up to 325 miles ready to go in the morning. No more gas stations. That's especially handy when it's 2 degrees outside, raining, or during a pandemic. And our electricity is 100% green from solar and hydropower, so there are 0 running emissions from this car. Now that 325 miles of range is under perfect conditions, but in real-world conditions, where you're running the heated seats and the cabin heater, maybe you're driving in a more spirited manner, well, of course, that can get cut way down. But still, we're talking about at least 200 miles before you would have to stop. And if you're going on a long road trip, well, you're going to be stopping every now and then to stretch and get some food and such anyway. Let's say I'm going on a long road trip to Florida. I put in my destination, and the screen tells me where to stop, for how long, and what amenities there are at each supercharger location. Typically, a charge from 25% up to about 80% on a supercharger takes about 15 minutes, which is totally reasonable when you need a break for food and a stretch on a long trip. And keep in mind, you only have to do that on a long road trip, never on a day-to-day basis if you have charging at home. There are over 16,000 superchargers in the US today. And our town of Woodbridge has even put in a few free chargers that EV drivers can use if you need it. What if you're on that long road trip and you're not hungry or you don't want to get out while you're supercharging because it's raining or something. Well, it's no problem. This infotainment system has so many bells and whistles built in, it can keep you and your kids entertained for days. Netflix, boom. Watch a movie with amazing surround sound and comfy seats. Or how about some video games? You can either play with the built-in touchscreen or even the steering wheel when it's in park for a racing game. Or plug in some game controllers and get a true gaming experience. There are some classics in here like Asteroids and Centipede, as well as more modern games like Cuphead and this farm game. Do you have a kid or an adult in the family who likes a good laugh? Well, try the whoopee cushion mode to make fart sounds come out of each of the different speakers. There are some other fun things like campfire mode, which puts a fire on the screen here, it blasts the heat, and it plays some romantic music. Or you could draw a picture, or make some music. And Tesla is releasing new and fun things all the time. Kind of nice that they have a real sense of humor. Unlike every other car that I've owned where you buy it as is, and that's as good as it gets, unless you buy an aftermarket upgrade or something like that, this car is literally getting better all the time. It has its own internet connection and can hop on your Wi-Fi too for downloads and upgrades.
So my wife got me this weird new kitchen knife as a Christmas gift. God.
Also getting updated all the time is the app. This gives you all kinds of control over your car. You can find out exactly where it is, how fast it's going, if any of the doors are open, and even close the windows remotely if it starts raining or something. One of my favorite features from the app is the ability to preheat or pre-cool the interior. From the app, you can heat up or cool down the car in advance, even if it's sitting in your garage. Something you just cannot do with an internal combustion car without literally risking your life from the exhaust gases. You can also schedule service right from the app and get roadside assistance if you need it. But one of the coolest features from the app is what's called Smart Summon. You can literally make the car come to you from the other end of the parking lot. That's great if it's pouring rain, or you're carrying something heavy, or you have some mobility issues. Let's talk about some great security features. My favorite is what's called Tesla Cam, which is basically a dash cam recorder that uses 4 of the 8 total cameras to record everything around your car. If you get into an accident or something, you can have video evidence of what actually happened. And those cameras are pretty useful when you aren't driving too. Tesla has what's called Sentry Mode, which means that those cameras start rolling if anyone walks up to your car. If your car gets broken into or damaged in a parking lot or something, again, you have some video evidence that you can provide to the police, including often license plates and the faces of the guilty party. It's also kind of fun to see how people interact with your car when you're not around. Yes, random woman in the parking lot, I saw you trying to open my door. One last feature that's not only fun, but potentially life-saving is what's called dog mode. We all know that you're not supposed to leave an animal in a hot car, so Tesla has made this feature that keeps your furry friend comfortable and safe. You can set whatever temperature you want, you can monitor it from the app, and the screen lets passerbys know that all is well. In fact, they're probably more comfortable than anyone outside. Are electric cars safe? Absolutely. In fact, they are safer than their gasoline counterparts. Why? Well, it's not just because EVs don't use gasoline, which is flammable and explosive and causes cancer if you breathe it in, but because of the entire layout of EVs. In a traditional car, you have a big engine block right here in front of the passengers. And if you get into a front-end collision, that engine block wants to come into the passenger compartment and squish any occupants in there. In an EV, the electric motors are much smaller. They're about the size of a watermelon, and they're down low and out of the way. So the entire front end of the car can then be designed as a crumple zone to absorb an impact. The batteries of the car are also pretty heavy, and they're mounted way down low at the bottom of the car, which means that the car has a very low center of gravity and resists rollover crashes better than any other kind of car. It also has a ton of technology to avoid accidents in the first place, including emergency braking, obstacle detection, lane departure warnings, emergency takeover, stability and traction control, and of course, a ton of airbags. This model is all-wheel drive with dual motors, meaning one electric motor up front and one in the back, so traction and handling in Connecticut in the winters is excellent. A huge selling point of EVs is that they are much less complicated in terms of the mechanical parts that make them work. There's no oil changes, there's no radiator fluid, there's no belts, there's no pulleys, there's no valves or exhaust systems. There's none of that stuff that can go wrong with an internal combustion engine. In an internal combustion engine, you have hundreds of moving parts, and every one of them has the potential to fail. It's just a matter of time, really. In an EV motor, there is just one moving part, and that's the rotor. So what maintenance is there on EVs? Typically, it's wiper blades, washer fluid, and tires. Every few years, you get your brake fluid checked. That's really it. Imagine never having to spend time and money on gas or another oil change. That's what you get with an EV.
This revolutionary dental device is saving Americans thousands of dollars in dental visits and treatments. It helps get rid of plaque tartar.
So how do you buy an EV? For most companies, they still have their dealer networks, so you just go to a showroom, talk to a salesperson, and buy it like any other car. Just make sure that you let them know that you want an electric car. How about buying a Tesla? Well, the easiest way is to go online to their website. You spec out the options you want, and that's it. You pick up your car in a couple of weeks, or they can deliver it to you. It's very handy in the pandemic. What if you want to check out a Tesla in person first? Currently, you can check out the cars in their Milford showroom for leasing options, but not for purchasing. Another way to learn about Teslas is to find an owner like me or someone else who will let you check out their car. Honestly, it's such a great product that many of us are happy to share our experiences. So reach out to some owners, check out some various Tesla clubs and Facebook groups to learn some more. And of course, there are other models of Teslas available, including the new Model Y, which is a hatchback crossover. Or there is the larger Model S, the Model X SUV with cool Falcon wing doors, or the Cybertruck, which should be coming out soon. So that's it. I thank you for taking the time to learn about EVs, and I hope you found this video informative. All right, we can skip the end of it there. All right, so hopefully that's a good starting point. Like I said, it's a little difficult to talk about a car without actually seeing the car. I do have it with me today. If anybody would like to check it out afterwards and even go for a ride, I'd be happy to do so. But like I said, hopefully this is a good starting point here. Do you guys want to stretch for a minute and just walk around a little bit, or just keep going? You okay? All right. Okay. So a few things have changed since that video. The prices have actually come down. There's new models out. You know, there's a few things that are different here. Let's see. Get back into this here. That's going. Is that working? Okay. All right. So yeah, my case study here. Obviously, this car here. Electricity has gone up, so I'd say it's about $15 now for me to fill this up at home. So about 300 miles costs about $15, which really isn't bad at all, considering the last car I had before this, which was a Subaru WRX STI. For about 300 miles, it was about a $50 or $60 fill up with premium. So way less expensive. And as I mentioned in the video, there really is like no maintenance to it. I've had this car for 6 years. Washer fluid, wiper blades. I finally put a new set of tires on it just recently. And I didn't talk about it really in the video, but there is almost no brake wear when it comes to an EV. The reason being that when you let off of the accelerator, it actually uses the magnets of the motor to slow you down, and it feeds that electricity back to the batteries. So it's not using the pads to slow you down like most of the time. Now they're still there. You can always hit the brake, you know, and it'll function like normal. But the reality is that people have gone easily 100,000 miles, even 200,000 miles without having to change the brake pads or the rotors or anything in the brake system. Probably after 10 years or so, a good idea to change the brake fluid. But apart from that, there's no brake maintenance. So imagine, I don't know if any of you have had like brake service lately, but it's expensive. It's what, $600, $800, depends on what car you have. But yeah, that's another feature as well. As I said, amazing performance, self-driving, all that fun stuff. That's kind of a summary there. So yeah, so we're up to like 45,000 miles in 6 years now. But yeah, it's really been great. So you can see a little summary here. I have not run out of charge ever. I have not come close to running out of charge ever. It was in the shop over 6 years for 3 days for an inverter replacement. So there was a little warning. It didn't die or anything. It didn't strand me. It just a little warning came up that said, hey, there's something wrong with your inverter. I scheduled for the appointment and then they fixed it. So 3 days out of 6 years that it's been out of service. Charge costs easily less than half of what I would have paid in gas and zero for maintenance. There's no loss of power. In fact, it's actually faster now than when I bought it because they keep putting out software updates and they figured out that the motors could actually handle more power than before. So it's actually improved even more. Yeah.
I have one benefit to add. It doesn't smell.
Ah, very true.
When
Yes.
I get into my minivan, after driving the Rivian for so long, getting into a car that uses fuel, I do smell the difference, and I am shocked. But it doesn't smell.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't smell the brake dust. I don't smell the gas. I don't smell. It feels cleaner.
Yeah, absolutely. So like my wife and I, we park next to each other. She has a Subaru Forester, and when she comes home, yeah, like I smell the brakes, like the heat of the brakes, and there is heat that just rolls off of that. It literally heats up the whole garage. This, nothing, nothing at all. And so yeah, it is a big difference. And of course the actual exhaust fume as well. There is no running exhaust or anything like that. So yeah, way, way better. And as you can see down at the bottom there, I made a little note on here, like, hopefully you can take a look at it before you leave today. A lot of people say like, oh, it's not built well, it's going to fall apart and so forth. You can judge for yourself. 6 years old, 45,000 miles, it's like showroom condition. So there's nothing that, it's not a badly made car or anything like that. So, all right, let's get into the actual myths here. So myth number one, EVs will never catch on. Well, I know a lot of people have been hesitant about it. A lot of people are actually anti-EV, and they would love for you to believe this. But in 2023, last year, the #1 best-selling car in the entire world was an EV. It was the Tesla Model Y, which beat out the Toyota RAV4 and the Toyota Corolla as well. They have been aggressively dropping prices, which is not so great if you have one and you want to sell it. But if you're looking to buy one new, this is great. So you can get a new Model 3 for less than a Toyota Camry. So people have been waiting for them to come down in price. It used to be if you wanted a Tesla or Rivian or anything like that, you were looking at $100,000 easily. Now, $30,000 is kind of the benchmark for the base model. And of course there's rebates and things to make it more affordable. So will they never catch on? Well, no, they're catching on already, to be honest. And that brings us, of course, to myth number 2 here, and I hear this quite a bit, that the rebates are unfair. So people will say to me, well, I don't like that the government, that my tax dollars are helping the government to pay you for your car, and it's not fair. There should be a level playing field. Well, if we want to go with that argument for a moment, then take away, okay, all the government subsidies for gasoline. Right? I mean, we don't realize it maybe, but gasoline does not cost $3.80 a gallon or whatever it happens to be. It's way more than that. The fact is that our government actually subsidizes it quite a lot to make it more affordable for everybody. So, okay, if you want to take away the government helping the electric owners, we'll take away the government helping out the gas owners, and that will bring gasoline to about $12.75 per gallon. All right, now EVs are already cheaper to run than gasoline cars, but if you want to take away the subsidies for oil and gas, well, then that's what you'd be paying. I mean, that's what they pay in Europe. If you've ever been to Europe, they pay $4 or $5 a liter, not a gallon, and it's way more expensive. So there's a little comparison down at the bottom there. So if you had internal combustion, and by the way, the ICE, that's internal combustion engine, so just a short way of saying that. So for an internal combustion at $3.28 per gallon, the cost per mile is 13 cents. If it's $12.75 per gallon, if you take away the rebates, then you're talking about 51 cents per mile. That's more of the real cost of gasoline. But EVs, the cost per mile is about 5 cents. So that's a big difference. And you see it. I mean, like, you probably see it, right? How about you? Have you noticed your gas bill go
I
down?
don't even know how much a gallon of gas costs anymore.
Me either. Like, I had to look it up. I honestly don't know how much gas costs anymore. Do you miss it? Do you miss going to the gas station?
I do not.
No, I don't either. I really don't. Yeah, like my wife and her mom will talk about like gas prices and so forth, and it's like, I really don't even care. Like, I don't know anymore. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so myth number 3, I mentioned this in the video a little bit, that EVs are more dangerous. People are like, oh no, it's dangerous. They catch on fire, they explode, all this. The reality is that EVs are safer than ICE vehicles. Now, there's data out there. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go and find, the data from the government and from the National Highway Safety. You're less likely to be injured, less likely to die in an EV than you have ever been in an ICE car. They're less likely to roll over, so the batteries are really low in the car, and so they actually had a hard time. You can see videos where they couldn't get some of the EVs to roll over very easily. Like most SUVs roll over very easily. They could not get the EVs to roll over in the safety tests. They have more advanced safety features to avoid accidents in the first place, because essentially it's a very capable computer that is able to analyze everything that the vehicle is doing. There's more physical crash protection. You don't have that big engine block that would want to come into the passenger compartment. It's all crush zones and everything. The size, if you're curious, by the way, the size of an EV motor is about the size of a watermelon. It's about this big. So instead of having this huge sprawling engine, all these hoses and everything else, it's this tiny little thing. So that gives you more crash protection. And a little fun fact, the Tesla Model S, and I think it was 2012, actually broke the testing equipment at Consumer Reports. They were trying to crush it with a hydraulic press, and the hydraulic press actually broke because it was so strong. On the flip side too, maybe we just don't think about it anymore, but gasoline is explosive, it's flammable, it causes cancer, it causes all kinds of breathing problems. Is that okay? Like, we just accept that, I guess. But if this were a new product and we say, hey, we're going to create this product, but it uses this stuff, and this stuff happens to be very toxic and flammable and explosive, are you going to buy it? No. But we're just used to it, I guess. And people are always worried about fires with EVs because it's in the news a lot. The reality is, internal combustion cars are 61 more times likely to catch fire than an EV. Speaking as a sort of household mechanic, I have literally had probably 3 cars catch on fire while I've been working on them. Especially if you ever worked on anything with a carburetor, it's just par for the course. It's just a normal thing. So way more likely to have a problem with an internal combustion car in terms of fire. So you can see the chart, and I tried to give you some links down at the bottom if anybody's interested. But the reality is way safer. And yes, so people will talk about and say, oh well, my relative is a firefighter, and they know that EVs are so hard to put out, and they use so much water and so forth. Well, technology improves, right? Like this right here is a company that makes car fire blankets. They don't have to throw thousands of gallons of water on it. They just drag this thing over the top, and it suffocates the fire, puts it out. Just wait till it burns itself out, and it stops. This is better for both internal combustion and electric vehicles, but this is a solvable problem. Like if our fire department can buy a mat for a couple $100 and call it a day, that to me is a solvable problem. And it's not happening nearly as much as you think it might be here. Myth number 4, it takes too long to charge. I hear this all the time. Did you guys hear any of these myths? People tell me anyway, I don't have time to charge. I like being able to fill up with gas. It takes 5 minutes. I get, however many hundreds of miles. I don't have time to sit around and wait for, 15, 20 minutes for it to charge up. But the reality is, if you have a charger at home, you don't have to think about charging. I never think about charging because as soon as I get home, just like my phone, I just plug in the car and that's it. But, in the morning I got 300 miles worth of charge. So the only time I ever have to think about charging is if I'm going on a long road trip. So if I'm going to New York, I'm going to Florida, I'm going to California, then I got to think about charging. But how often is that? Once or twice a year, and it's not that long. So I'll give you for instance. My wife and I went up to upstate New York to the Finger Lakes, and we had to stop at it was the Roscoe Diner or something halfway there, and so we had to charge up the car, and it probably took about 15 minutes for the car to fill up. Now you don't fill it all the way up to 100. You usually go from like 25% up to like 85% just to get you to the next charging station. And like by the time we had ordered our food, the car was already done. You know, and so we needed more of a break than the car needed. That was the reality of it. And so if you have charging at home, you don't think about it. I mean, to think about it in the flip way, like imagine if your gas car had a full tank every single morning. How often would you stop at the gas station? You wouldn't, right? And that's what you have with an EV as long as you have charging at home. Yeah.
And the charge stations are always near something convenient. So I've
Yeah.
always, it's not like a gas station where you're like, all right.
Right, it's not like the only thing there, right?
Right, there's usually a Starbucks, there's usually right next to a grocery store, usually, like, there's always something to do, even with bored kids in the car, let's just walk and see.
Yeah.
You're a Target, you're something, so.
Exactly, yeah.
It has never been an issue.
Yeah, and in the case of the Tesla, like it'll tell you, okay, this has Wi-Fi, this has food, this has bathrooms and so forth. And you could watch a movie while you're waiting in the car, you know, for 15 minutes. Very, very doable. So very easy to do, at least for all electric vehicles have now adapted what's called the North American Charging Standard, so they all have the same charging port now, which is nice. Laura, did you have a question?
You know, when I tell people that, you know, EV is the way to go, they'll say, well, not everybody has a garage.
Yes, which is true, which is very, very true. So let's talk about that.
What about the ice storms?
Yes, yeah, people bring up those
That's what they
scam
tell me,
arguments. Yep.
you know, so.
So yeah, and
I
we'll have to talk
respond
about
to
this.
them.
But yeah, so let's keep going here. So it takes too long to charge. Now on the flip side, okay, we're talking about 15, 20 minutes to charge up your car. How long do you spend at the gas station? How long do you spend waiting for emissions testing or brakes to get done or any of that? That all goes to zero. So I drew up a little comparison here. This is just sort of quick napkin math here, but you know, how much time do I spend charging per year? Well, when I get home at night, I get out of the car, I take the cable, I stick it in 5 seconds most. You know, like that is not a lot. So let's say I do that 5 seconds per day. All right, that adds up to 30 minutes a year, all right, of me doing something to charge the car. And if I go on one road trip a year to New York, you know, that's the example I gave there, let's say it was 20 minutes. All right, 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. So in a whole year, I've spent about 70.4 minutes charging, having to worry about charging. On the flip side, if you think about an internal combustion car, you're spending, and I think this is pretty optimistic here, but let's say you're saying you're spending 5 minutes every 2 weeks to fill your car, right? That's pretty optimistic. That's 130 minutes per year just for that. Then you have, let's say, 2 oil changes, if you're good about your oil changes. Well, that's 40 minutes per year, again, if it's a quick place. And add in, let's just say, brake service, belts, cool and flush, emissions testing. One of those is likely to come up in any given year. Let's say about an hour for that. So right there, we're looking at 70 minutes versus 230 for a year, right? So that's 3 times as much time spent with a gas-powered car versus an electric car. So when somebody says, I don't have time for an EV, it takes too long to charge, well, you're not really looking at the big picture. You're getting a whole lot of time back that you're not even realizing that you're spending. And yeah, and we'll get to the charging too, because that is a good point, so we'll talk about that too. But I think I have it in a later slide. Okay, myth number 5, and of course this is a big one for the sustainability committee here. EVs are worse for the environment. Now, you will hear this a lot, especially from the oil and gas industry or anybody who is sort of anti-EV. Now, there is some truth to it that the initial manufacturing of making an EV, like an EV is a more complicated product. So the batteries themselves have more complexity to them, there's more materials in them, that sort of thing. So the initial manufacturing does have a higher impact versus internal combustion, but for the life of the vehicle, it now has 0 running emissions, whereas the internal combustion continually is outputting for its entire life emissions. Another little factoid here, people will say, okay, well what if your power is coming from coal? Then you've just extended a long tailpipe and it's going to be even worse. Well, people have run the numbers on this. Even with 100% coal-produced electricity, in the lifetime of the vehicle, you're still better off than with an internal combustion. And I'll show you a little chart that shows you the comparison here. And of course, as our grid becomes greener and we add more renewables in there, that number only gets better and better when it comes to electric vehicles. So EVs over their lifetime have a significantly, way lower carbon footprint than gas-powered cars. When it comes to recycling, the batteries can be recycled, and they do. And of course, advancements in battery technology are, they're getting better every year. One of the myths, I guess I'll bust right here, is that there aren't big piles of like car batteries sitting around in landfills or something. It just doesn't exist. They recycle them. Or very often, when they stop having enough charge to be useful for a vehicle, they'll actually use them for home batteries. So they'll take them out and then use them for home as well. So yeah, there aren't just big piles of batteries sitting around from cars. That just doesn't happen. So here's the chart. So what a lot of people will point out is that that very first part over there, okay, for the first year or two, yes, the impact, let me just jump over here. Okay, so these are electric cars, right? This is an EV running on really nice, clean electricity. This is like average electricity, kind of like Connecticut, and this is like coal. Like all your electricity is coming from coal. So these are the three scenarios for electric cars right here, and this is internal combustion. So yes, when they first made it, okay, it was a little worse for the environment for the EV, but at the 2-year point, that's the break even. And then from 2 years out for the whole rest of the life of the vehicle, it's less emissions. It is less of an impact on the environment after the 2-year mark. So as long as you're planning on having a car more than 2 years, which hopefully you do, it's a non-issue. It is much better for the EV. Less secondary pollution too. EVs aren't leaking a bunch of oil all over the place, whereas regular cars do it every single day, right? Okay. And people also bring up like mining and like the human impact. And these are real things, right? We should think about the whole picture. So like cobalt mines, for example. Well, people will say, well, cobalt is being used in these batteries. It's bad. It's terrible. Well, guess what also uses cobalt? Gasoline. They use it in the refining process. But instead of it being like used in the battery once, it's used throughout the life of the vehicle. So if you're really concerned about cobalt being a problem, or lithium, or well, not lithium, but cobalt, if you're really concerned about that, then again, another reason why it's actually better to have an EV. And as far as like lithium goes, now this is sort of, we have to think about it, again, big picture, because any sort of mining, any production of anything is going to have a negative impact on our planet in some way. But we have to look at that big picture. Okay, if we can have this effect here for the mining, but then reduce the carbon output and the pollution output total, writ large, then that's the better way to go. Not to say that can't be better. I think that we should explore absolutely everything that we can do to make sure that mining has a minimal impact. Look at other technologies that don't involve lithium, which a lot of companies are doing. But yeah, like I said, even if you're looking at that impact, it is still relatively small and gets better over the life of the vehicle. And waste from lithium-ion batteries, which you might hear about a lot, like, oh, there's so much waste in the landfills and so forth, that's like almost entirely from small electronics. That's from like phones, that's from little batteries and so forth, not from car batteries. That's, like I said, these are big battery packs. Nobody is just tossing these into a can somewhere. They're getting recycled. And of course, there's the other impacts of oil dependency. So yes, there are some negatives to any kind of production, including batteries. But then think about oil dependency and oil production. So you have all the pollution, all the global climate change that's happening. You have the direct heat output from the vehicle that creates tons of heat. Oil spills in the ocean, oil regimes of the countries which are very much invested in oil being a continual product. You have wars that are fought over oil and territory. So yeah, I mean that's a big part of the industry as well. And that's continuously. You have to continuously refine and produce and transport oil for the whole life of the vehicle. Again, whereas with an EV, you just do it once at the beginning, and then it gets better and better over time. And it's kind of funny how like a lot of people will not think about this, but like how simple EVs are in terms of like being able to charge them. You could literally just have like a solar panel and be like on an island in the middle of the Pacific and like charge up your car and drive around, right? You're not dependent on this huge system. You can just, charge it with solar. And of course, there's other health impacts of oil and gasoline: cancer, asthma, carbon monoxide deaths. I personally know 2 people who have died because they had a remote car starter and they accidentally hit the button in their pocket, and it filled up their whole house with carbon monoxide. So we could, make those numbers go to 0. And of course, there's actual fires from gasoline, there's birth defect, you know, there's all these things. Again, we're just maybe used to it, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if you're actually looking to reduce global pollution and helping fellow humans and so forth, the choice is pretty clear here. Now, as far as like making, the generation of this, how do you make gasoline? How do you make electricity? This is maybe kind of something we don't think about. But yeah, how do you make gasoline? Well, millions of years ago, some dinosaur died, which is not really how it happens. It's usually like more like sea life and so forth. But millions of years had to pass. Crude oil is pumped out of the ground. It's refined. Other chemicals are added to it for blending. It's transported via pipeline and trucks and cargo ship and so forth. It's brought to the gas station. It's pumped into the vehicle, and then it's burned. You spend all this time and effort and everything. You're making this product, and you burn it, which 75% of the energy in that gasoline is actually lost to heat during the combustion, as opposed to electricity, where we have the sun, which is just pumping out free energy for us every day. You can stick a solar panel on your roof, and plug in your car, and that's it. That is your whole system as far as getting the energy into your vehicle. And only 16% of the energy is lost during charging to heat. So it's much more efficient. It's way less complicated. So yeah, the choice is pretty clear. I mean, if you just look at like the dollars, just the complexity that goes into oil production is staggering, right? Is compared to electricity generation. All right, myth number 6 here. EVs are unreliable. Well, just right off the bat, they're simpler. I put the drill up here because that's basically like what the EV is. It's a lithium-ion battery, it's an electric motor, has one moving part, that's it. But if you look at an internal combustion engine, hundreds of moving parts. Belts, pulleys, valves, everything that is subjected to heat, all the pumps, everything. Especially if you've ever been a mechanic, there's a lot of parts to replace in there. And they do fail. And so simpler design, it's just way better. Battery longevity, people are worried that batteries won't last long enough. Almost all the manufacturers have 10-year warranties these days on the battery, so you don't have to worry about it at all. If you have your battery longer than that, still not a problem. They're made to really last for at least 2 decades. And even then, they don't just fail usually, they just sort of degrade a little bit. And they'll go down to about, I think it's about 92% or something like that. So I have a friend who has a Model S from 2008, and it still works fine. The battery won't store quite as much power, but it's still like 90-something% of what it was originally. And so we're still talking hundreds of miles. It's still a very, very useful vehicle, and it's almost 20 years old, I guess. And another thing that's kind of interesting, just as being a car guy here, over time, internal combustion engines lose power. So if you ever have like an old car, chances are it does not have as much pep, as it used to when it was a brand new car. EVs don't have that problem. They always have 100% power. So yeah, that's another little fact in there. Okay, and now this is getting to Laura's question here about, the grid can't handle EVs. Now you've probably heard this before. People will say, we can't change to electric because it'll destroy the grid. Now, people will put up this mythic scenario where we instantaneously, overnight, replace every single gas car with an EV. And yes, that would be a nightmare scenario that is not, that just wouldn't work at all. That would be a problem. But the reality is that EV ownership is ramping up over time. And so, things like the infrastructure bill, everything else, people are trying to improve the grid, and it's working. Also, most charging happens at night when the rates are cheaper. Like, I don't know if your car does this or not, but like mine, I can set it up so that it only starts charging at 8:30 at night when, demand for electricity is much, much lower. And EVs can actually help the grid. Now, this is just sort of a personal opinion here, but a lot of cars, like the Ford F-150 Lightning, they actually have reverse charging to them. And I think the Rivian does too, right? Yeah. So you can actually send energy back to the grid. So imagine if we did replace all the gas cars, but with electric vehicles, and during the day when solar is happening and wind is happening, and we're charging up all those batteries, like when the electricity is being used during the day, the cars can basically help the grid when it's needed. So if my car is plugged into the grid and it has all this charge that I'm not currently using, it can actually help stabilize the grid to give it more energy. Yes?
And Rivian has some sort of program, I don't know if it's an EV thing or a Rivian thing, where they will pay you extra when the grid is like during the daytime hours
Yes,
to help
yeah.
the grid.
Yeah, because your car is actually helping the grid.
Right.
Right, it's not the other way around.
And
It's not that
they'll
you're
pay me
restrained.
double, I think it was like triple the rate of what electric rates are. So
Oh,
I
really?
would be
Wow.
making.
Because it's
like-
very much in demand at that moment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it had to be that core time when it's in most demand, so we
Mhm.
just signed up for it.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. So it's like your car is a battery that basically expands the grid and actually supports it. So I think personally, it would be nice to sort of mandate
How
that.
does that work?
So imagine like, so if you have your car and you plug it in at night, and like, you know, the normal scenario is the grid is giving you power, and that battery is filling up. And now, your battery's full. And then if all of a sudden the grid is starting to go down, or there's a lot of people running their air conditioners and so forth, it actually pulls energy out of your battery.
But it has to be plugged in.
Has to be plugged in,
Oh, okay.
yes, yes.
All right.
And it has to be a special,
Right.
you know, a special vehicle that allows for it.
Okay, got it.
Does it have to
I
do
thought
that?
it was just like.
Have to,
Can you, does it have to, do you have to give them back the energy or can you?
oh no, you don't have to. Yeah, no, you want to keep it, you keep it. You just unplug it if you really want it to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's optional. And actually, what's really cool too is that the vehicles, like the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Rivian, and I think maybe even the Hyundais as well, you can plug in like appliances and things to them. So like fans and even like welders, like high demand electric things, you could plug into it because it's basically this huge power plant that you could plug in anything you want to it.
Correction, that program was not a Rivian thing, it was my Tesla solar panels.
Oh, is that what, oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
but that
sorry,
same
but that-
principle
yes.
could apply, yes, to the
So
cars.
it
And that's what I
wouldn't-
think would be
It
useful.
wouldn't drain my car, but it would just, whatever power it generated during the day,
Mhm.
it would be put back into the grid,
Into the
and,
grid, yeah.
and we would get the we would get cost benefits for that.
Yes. Now, do you have solar as well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, and here's kind of a side note about solar. Some people are thinking like, okay, well, what is this, you know, sort of magical, mythical thing where we're all on green power and so forth? It's just not, we can't achieve it, right? See that little blue square over there by Nevada? That's how much of the United States we would have to cover with solar panels to power the entire country. The entire country, 10,000 square miles. And that's assuming a 20% panel efficiency. They're actually up to about 30% for some of the high-end panels. So the fact that this is doable. I mean, like, so anybody who has solar in their house, does anybody else have solar? Yeah? All right, do you guys enjoy your solar? Like, is it good? Yeah. Everybody who has solar absolutely loves it. So yeah, this is doable. Can we switch, you know, our system over? Yes. Now, it can't all be in one place like this because transmission won't work that way. We can't have cables big enough to get it over there. But just a side note, you know, solar is really the way to go. And if you have an electric vehicle, that's all you need. You just need some electricity.
So you were mentioning the additional benefit of being able to run other things
Yes.
from that. Would that somehow translate into the potential for use during a power outage?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. So like with that Ford F-150 there, so that cable, you just plug it in, and if the grid goes down, the storm is out, your house still runs. And that can charge a house. I don't know if I put it on here or not, but I think it could run your house for like 3 or 4 days, just on the vehicle. So how amazing is that? Like not having to wheel out the gas generator or just being in the dark, right? So it's a huge battery pack. It's a ginormous battery pack.
Yeah, the last outage, my husband just plugged in the extension cord from the car
Yeah.
and just dragged it into the house and just, you know.
And you can do that too. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it has been helpful, especially when we go camping. There's actually plug ports in the bed of the truck, so we could plug in whatever.
Yeah, like
we
regular
want.
outlets. And they're not like, it's not like it would trip really easily, like they're heavy duty,
Yes.
like you could run anything on them kind of outlets. Yeah. All right, so there's the solar thing there. Okay, so now this is to Laura's question. Thank you for being patient here. So that there's myth number 8 here, there's nowhere to charge. So it is great. Okay, if you have a garage, you know, perfect, right? You just plug it in, that's ideal scenario. But not everybody has a garage. Not everybody lives, you know, never has a house, that sort of thing. Well, I'll show you one thing up here that's really quite cool. You see this little like utility meter up here? This is a good scenario for like my parents. They live in Hamden, they have a little driveway, and their electrical service is right there. And watch this little video here, I'll play. If I can get it, there we go. All they do is take your meter off, this little ring goes in there, it pops back on, and that connects to your charger. How easy is that? So you don't have to call up like, you know, spend thousands of dollars on an electrician to run cables and do all that stuff. super, super simple. And there's actually a few manufacturers that are doing this. So, and basically anywhere that there's power, I mean, like if there were some zombie apocalypse or something like that, and you know, gasoline cannot be had, it's like I could literally plug my car into that outlet over there and charge it if I really needed to. And so if you think about it, we have electricity everywhere. So there's another option here where you can see for people who live in like apartment buildings, right? Or they have street parking. Where are they going to charge? Well, there's a bunch of these units that are coming out where it just sits on the pole and it has like a cable that comes down and you can plug in there. So yeah, there's not that there isn't more to do, because there is for sure. But you know, especially if you already have a garage, if you already have a driveway, it's really, really easy. To
What
do.
about the freezing rain though? Will that, you know, hit that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like rain goes, these, like the chargers are made to be, you know, used outside. I think if there were freezing rain, I would probably put a little hack is if you take like a doormat and just kind of stick it over there so it doesn't, you know, freeze up. They do actually, some of them have little heaters in the cable area, and when they charge, they tend to have a little bit of heat to them as well. I haven't heard of anybody getting stuck that way. Not to say that it couldn't happen,
Yeah.
but I think there's probably some ways around it.
Well, that's what they post, you know.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you'll see, like there was an example where there was a ice storm or something,
Right,
and
right.
people were stuck in traffic, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't have an EV."
Yeah.
The reality is, I could hang out and camp in my car for 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
with the heat going. Whereas with an internal combustion car, you probably have a carbon monoxide problem pretty quickly, right?
I
So,
was gonna say that too, you're not charging it very often, so if it's freezing rain outside, I just wouldn't charge it.
Yeah.
I
That
just
too.
Yeah.
stay inside until the rain is gone.
that's true. Yeah, you just charge it up ahead of time,
Yeah.
unplug it. Right?
Right,
Yeah.
but I don't have to charge it every night.
Yeah. So, can we do better? Sure. But for a vast majority of people out here, it is actually very easy to charge. Yeah.
Can you touch on the myth or challenges of charging in cold weather due to the efficiencies of the battery, and what your own personal experiences
Sure.
in Connecticut?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so cold weather does affect batteries. As far as the charging goes, it doesn't really change it all that much. If your vehicle is cold, and let's say you're on a road trip and you need to charge up, it will take a little longer. But most of the cars, the Tesla included, are smart enough where if you are in need of charge and you put that in on the screen, it actually starts preheating the battery for you. So it actually warms up the battery, so it's not really an issue. Cold temperature does affect range as well. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's, personally, I would get an EV that has 200 or 300 or more miles worth of range rather than one that's, you know, a tiny little 50 or 100 miles, something like that. They used to say that like 100 miles was the golden number and you had to get at least 100 miles. I'd say 200 or 300 is good because with the cold, it reduces it down a little bit. And you're running like the cabin heater, which, you know, runs the battery down a little bit more. But no, even in cold weather, I've never had any problems with it. And the last one here, this is the last one. You guys have been super patient going through all these. EVs aren't fun. Absolutely not true. Roller coasters, are they fun? Skydiving, is that fun? They don't have exhausts. You know, so yeah, it's absolutely thrilling. It's definitely the most responsive car you will ever drive. Super, super responsive. Anytime you're in an internal combustion car, there's always a little bit of a delay, right? If you press the accelerator down, there's a second or so where you have to kind of wait for it to kick in, right? Not with an EV. It's instantaneous. I mean, it's like your foot is attached to like the G level. Like it's just instantaneous, and there's really no way to sort of describe it. But if you do some searching online, you can see some videos and things where people are just blown away by how incredibly fast and fun these cars actually are. Another thing that comes up is people will say that they have no soul, and that, you know, it needs the exhaust, it needs that sound, it needs that heat. And I get this to some degree. I still enjoy, you know, internal combustion cars. But this does make me think of like when we went from horses to cars, right? That's literally going from like an animal, like a living, breathing creature to a pile of metal, right? And I thought this was a really fitting quote. This is from an author named C.W. Anderson, where he said, "Many people have sighed for the good old days and regretted the passing of the horse as cars were being adopted. But today, when only those who like horses own them, it's a far better time for horses. And that's kind of how I see our current situation. For those people who really love gas-powered cars and motorsports and things like that, you can still do that. You can still get a gas-powered car. But are you, as far as like a commuter goes, as a daily driver, you just can't be an EV. It's so much better in every way. And like I said at the beginning, I'm not like anti-combustion, you know, I'm just happen to be pro-EV because it's a much better car in so many ways. So my daily driver car, there's no beating the Tesla. It's fabulous in every way. But yeah, will I have a gas-powered stick shift, old-fashioned car still? Yeah, because I like that. That's my hobby. All right, so final thoughts here. So EVs, they're practical, they're reliable, they're safe, they're fun, they're better for the environment. Ignore the myths. You know, there's going to be a bunch of junk. There's a bunch of garbage signs out there. Try to ignore that. I will say that words versus experience, you know, I wasn't sold on EVs either until I actually drove them. Because the same goes today. It's like I could tell you all this information, maybe it sounds good, but you're like, I'm still a little hesitant about it. You just have to try it. And like I said, my car is here. I'm happy to show you guys. You can go for a ride if you like. Every single time I take somebody for a ride, they're blown away by how amazing this car is. I mean, like you can see some of the reactions I put up here. I can't think of a time where I've taken somebody out and showed them like, you know, how quick it accelerates, and they haven't just been floored, literally floored by it. Most recently, a couple weeks ago, I had a colleague. He said, I had no idea it was this amazing. He said, I guess I bought into the negative press, and he's a journalist. He's a journalist. He said, I wish I had tried this car a few weeks before because he just bought a new Mazda, and yeah. So he was like, oh, he was honestly regretful. He's like, I wish I had seen this before. Are there any downsides to it? Yes. Politics. The anti-EV sentiment is pretty annoying. The fact that there's people out there who are like actively trying to, you know, say that this isn't a good product when it clearly is. And I could do without Elon, to be honest. He has done so many things that are just plain out there. So yeah, I could do without that. But I can't fault the company. It's like so many engineers and designers and all these people who have put so much into the car. It's not just him. So I don't know. Is the CEO of Ford or Toyota, are they nice people? I don't know. You know. Yes.
I currently have a hybrid which gives me 50 miles to the gallon.
Yes.
Now, when they talk about comparisons of cost, they use 12 cents a kilowatt hour electricity cost, which is the average in the country.
Sure.
In Woodbridge, I'm paying 37 cents per kilowatt hour for my electricity.
Sure.
Would I save any money by buying an electrical car?
It's a good question. Yeah, so there's a couple of things to think about with a hybrid. So hybrids are, they're sort of an interesting product. I won't say that they're bad, but in one respect, you have all the complexity of an internal combustion engine plus all the systems of the EV. So like long term, for me anyway, you still have all that maintenance. You're still going to the gas pump, you're still doing all that stuff, you're just having to get better gas mileage. If you compare like the best hybrid out there versus expensive electric, it's probably close. I would still wager that the EV would still be a little less expensive, but you have zero maintenance to it. And I think that's what would push you over. And yes, ultimately it would be less expensive. Plus you get all that time back that you're not doing brakes and, you know, filling the gas and doing all that other stuff. So huge difference, maybe not huge, but I would still say that yeah, EV is the way to go.
About the self-driving of Tesla, you know, Consumer Reports said that it's not really totally self-driving. They charge $10,000 extra for that.
Right.
And there's a case from the federal government now. They're investigating it because of all the accidents and deaths from people using self-driving on the Tesla.
Yep.
Any comments on that?
Sure, yeah, so I'll say, on one hand, it's just a driver assist feature. Like, you know, Tesla, I think, made a mistake by calling it like autopilot and sort of marketing it almost as like a completely self-driving thing. It's not, at least not yet. So you still have to be 100% paying attention. You know, so you hear these horror stories about somebody reading a book or whatever, and in order to do that, they have to like defeat the system, and you know, they've intentionally done that. And so I have the self-driving. I only paid like $2,000 for it because it was on sale basically. It's useful for like long road trips. So if I want to be able to stretch a little bit, or I was having some problems with my back, it was actually really useful to be able to just click it into autopilot and kind of stretch a little bit. But you still have to be ready to take over. It's kind of like driving with a teenager. Like it might just do something kind of random. Most of the time I'm still driving myself. But what I will say is, what I really love it for is stop and go traffic. So if I'm like stuck in the tunnel or something, which I'm sure we all have, like I just put it in autopilot and I get to relax. I don't have to like stare at the bumper in front of me, you know.
To be clear, there are some cars that do that without being EVs. You can't claim that for an EV. But
What do you mean, that they can drive themselves?
No, but in stop and go traffic, you have this cruise control that
Oh, sure, yes.
moves you and stops you, moves you and stops you.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
just-
Right, but
No,
today, yeah, I mean, as long as you have like a fully...
Well, there's lane controls too, but it's not as strong. But you're making it sound like EVs have something that other cars don't have.
Well, that's true. There are other vehicles that have that for sure. Yeah, I think I'm just bringing this up because it happens to be a feature of this particular EV. Now, something that it has that others don't is like the self-driving part of it. So, for example, when we go out here, I can make the car come to me.
Yeah, no,
That's
my
not-
car can't do that.
That's not something that another car can do.
No,
Right.
there's.
So there's kind
The
of
question
levels
is,
to it.
Can you say that about every brand of EVs? I mean, you're really selling Teslas.
Well, like I said, I am not selling Tesla.
No,
This
you
is
are.
just my...
You're selling. You're not getting paid, but you're selling them.
You
And
should
I'm
be
sorry
getting
that
paid.
you.
Is it fair to ask if we, and that was one of my questions, to get some sense of comparable automobiles that may be a little more affordable? And maybe, and that ties in with my question about the availability of service. And I know it's minimal,
Right.
but when you do need it.
When you do need it, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, because my understanding is the only place you can actually really buy a Tesla is at the casino.
The casino, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's something that's
I
changed
don't want to go there
recently.
to get my car serviced. I don't want to
Right.
go there anyway, but.
So, okay, so I'll address a couple things here. So, first off, I don't work for Tesla, for sure.
No, I know, Doug.
I mean, I know that I'm talking it up quite a bit, though, but that's just my case study.
Yeah.
Like, I wish, like, if I had the Rivian or the E, I wish I could talk about those more in depth,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody else could, too. And in fact, like, when I go to buy my next EV, it's not going to be a Tesla, to be honest, because I really don't like the association with Elon currently. And so I'm moving on. I think he did a great job of creating this. The existing automotive industry was 100% fine with just going with gas forever. They had no intention of really changing. So I think he did a good job of pushing. But like I said, I'm not going to buy one right now. And in fact, I might be selling this one soon because of that. But anyway, but it's just my case study because it's the only one I could really speak to that way.
But with your
But then you were-
question, sorry.
Okay,
With
good.
your question with the self-driving, it's not a feature I use very often.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is an additional benefit, but it's only really when I'm tired or when I have to text someone back. I just do the auto drive on my Rivian and quickly text safely. And I've even made the point to my husband how it's really hard when my teenager starts driving to not consider an EV car because of so many safety features in these new cars. Like it literally was not impossible, but like it has prevented me from, it has warned me with so many things while I'm driving that were not my fault. Yeah, there were so many safety features on these cars that my kid would be safe if he was doing something stupid like texting or doing whatever. You know, like
Right, yeah.
I would feel more comfortable with him in an EV car than I would be in an ICE car. But unfortunately, I can't give him an EV car as his first car because I'm too old school. That's ridiculous.
You have to work your way up there. Right, which actually brings us to your question, right?
About, comparable.
What are the
cars
comparables? Well,
And,
yeah.
and also, I'm just gonna say it really fast, your wife's Forester.
Mm.
I'm a diehard Subaru person.
Yeah,
So-
it's a great car,
So, I will tell you, you were mentioning the engine and it has a separate compartment it falls in, so you know, it doesn't go into your face. Your wife's car has that too. I actually experienced that with my 2018,
Oh, really?
it saved
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just to say, and I wish Subaru had a good EV.
Yeah, we've been looking at their new EV. So it's okay.
Not
I
yet.
wish the range were higher on it. Because I
there's
think
a
it's
lot
only
of
about
things that are-
it's only about 200 miles or so,
Yeah,
I think max.
Mhm.
And so if it's cold, then it's less than that. So that's the one thing I say about Tesla is that they've been so good about, they've been doing it for so long that they are the best when it comes to the efficiency of the batteries. Because that size battery that's in the Subaru, the same size battery in the Tesla gets you much further because it's just more efficient. But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't buy one right now. I would get, there's the Mustang Mach-E is very good. The Ford Lightning is amazing, especially with the power battery backup. The Hyundai has wonderful, wonderful reviews. What else is out there? Almost every company now is starting to come out with them. Like, I'm waiting for a Jeep, honestly, like a Jeep Wrangler sort of thing that's coming out. They have the Recon, that's very expensive though. See, the problem is the EVs tend to be more expensive to start, and then they get gradually less expensive over time. So Tesla does have the advantage of having done it for so long, and that they're driving down the prices very rapidly. So for your money, that's probably the best, bang for the buck at the moment. I'm not sure what the Solterra runs for cost-wise, but you said you weren't impressed with it otherwise?
No, in
Yeah.
fact, the mechanics, and I'm not saying anything, but the mechanics I routinely see, for routine maintenance, that they say the same thing. They're dying for a better one to come out.
Yeah.
You get great prices.
And I think
on
they
it.
will.
The Solterra.
Unusual, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the manufacturers are finally catching on. Like, they need to come out with an EV of some kind. The government's control of it or mandates, is less clear now than it was. But for the most part, there's so many benefits to it that ultimately customers will also drive that decision because, like, I don't want to buy another gas car if it's just a daily driver. If it's a fun car, yeah, but not for a daily driver.
And just one more note on the service aspect of it.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
so God forbid you're
Yes.
in an accident
Mm-hmm.
on the highway. How do you get that car?
Okay, so yeah, really good question. For little things, and again, I'm sorry, this is only Tesla because that's what I have and that's what I experienced. They actually have mobile service that will come out to you for various things.
For just Tesla.
Just Tesla. I'm not sure about the other. I think Rivian does too, actually. So if you have something small that's wrong with your car, yeah, I don't think they have more of a traditional dealer.
I haven't had to use it.
You haven't had to use it, right? Because it hasn't broken, which is great. But so I had like some small thing, or it was like a recall or something, where they just come out to your work or house, and they just fix it for you and they leave, which is nice. So I didn't have to go anywhere. And then there's a service center in Milford that does. So if you need to put it up on a lift and there's something major going on, like when I had the inverter replaced, it went to Milford.
Yeah, I didn't realize they did service.
Yeah, Milford is really like just silver service, really. So, but if you're going to buy it, that's when you got to go out to the casino.
Tire wear, any difference?
Tire wear, it's a little bit more wear. Some people say that it's awful, and I've found personally the reason why that is because for my car, it has performance tires on it, which are summer tires. And people don't realize that you're not supposed to use those tires in the winter. It's not just a traction thing, they actually wear off really quickly because it's just not made for that temperature. But as long as you have the right tires, like I have bigger rims, smaller rims for more rubber, and they're just like aftermarket tires and rims. And I would say it's comparable. What's that?
Are they run flats?
No, these are just regular. Yeah, they're like Continental 18-inch tires.
Does it come with a spare?
No, it does not. Yeah, now you could put a spare in there if you want. There's plenty of trunk space, and you could put it in there if you really want to. But usually they tell you to bring a can of Fix-A-Flat and just use the roadside assistance. So they don't really want people changing tires anymore anyway. Even if you buy a regular vehicle, most of the time they say just use the roadside assistance. Same thing with like my wife's car. It's like if you ever get a flat on a highway, like just get out of the car, like move away from the road and call somebody. Don't try to change the tire yourself. This is not safe.
I want to talk a little bit about the charging infrastructure. I mean, Tesla's done a great job of covering the world with chargers, whereas the rest of us don't have that luxury. And they keep saying the adapter will be next quarter. I think they've been saying that for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on when that might happen?
I don't know exactly.
What the sort of will we unify on a single connector?
Yes, well they have. So the Tesla one, they have actually rebranded it as the NACS, or the North American Charging Standard. Now some of the older vehicles, or not even old, but current models, may not have that, so you have to use an adapter. But all new models going forward, they finally got all of the manufacturers to agree to one standard, which is amazing.
So this 1772 is going to go away?
I believe so, yeah. So if you still have the Dual or any of the other ones, you'll use an adapter. But if you buy like a new vehicle that's a 2025 model, they're basically all on this new, what was the Tesla standard is now the North American charging standard. Which is great, because you don't want to be like on a road trip and like, oh, I can't use this charger, I have to go to that one, you know. So now they're all going to be universal.
Tesla doesn't allow you to, everybody else to use their chargers, does it?
They have been starting to open it up, and supposedly they will be letting other people use it as well. But I think currently they're kind of using it, they're opening up like on a bit at a time. So I don't know the current standard of it, because you guys might know more than me, but I think the goal is to open it up to everybody at some point.
I haven't had to use Go to One, and my car tells me the charger, you know, if it's a long trip and it needs to charge in the middle, it'll drive me to one that will work. So I'm never stuck. If I'm never looking for a charger, the car will tell me where the charger is.
Yeah, and you're not just like driving around like hoping to find a charger. Like it's all done through this screen. Yeah, no, like so like I showed in that video there. So if I'm going on a long road trip, I just put it in there, and it just knows to map out. You're going to stop here and charge for 15 minutes. You're going to stop here and charge for 10 minutes, and then you're at your destination. So it's really foolproof. Unless you kind of are going it on your own, there's no way you're going to run out.
Security in terms of entrance to the car, you had mentioned you were using your phone.
Very good,
so
yeah.
So you lost your phone and somebody else gets it.
Yes, so a couple good points there. So yeah, the app is pretty amazing. And in terms of security, like this has something, this is new, it just came out, I don't know, in the last year or so here. I can actually open this up. Just let this.
I can kick out users in the app.
There we go. I can actually see a live view of my car out there. So it's using like all the cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
So if somebody is like lurking out there and they're checking cars, it's like I can actually see and then like honk or do something like that. And it records if somebody walks up to the car, which is pretty amazing. Now, if you do lose your phone, this is the easiest way by far. I don't have to turn a key or push a button or do anything. I just get in and direct. But you can also use a card. So like in my wallet, then I have a backup, which is just a little credit card. So this little card right here, you just hold it up to the pillar, it goes honk honk, you open it up, you stick it next to like the cup holder, and then the car is on for that trip. And then when you leave the car, you just hold it back up to the pillar, it goes honk honk, and then you're done. So even if you didn't have a phone, as long as you have this, then.
But each one of those is just particular to you, or can
Yes.
someone share them?
Yeah, so they give you 2 to start. You can always get more. People even get like rings and watches and things that do it. But yeah, you could program as many as you want in there. So what I'll do typically is when I go for like a valet or something, which isn't often, but if somebody else needs to drive my car, then I can give them that. It actually has a special valet mode, so they can't go over like 35 miles an hour and things like that, and it'll record them as they that sort of thing. And then yeah, so it's very secure that way. And there's also like a pin to drive. So when I do car shows and things, I invite people to sit in the car and just check it out, play with it and stuff. But I don't want some kid being able to just like drive off, right? So it actually has like you have to type in a code in order to drive the car too.
Oh.
So you can turn that on and off if you like.
But if somebody stole your phone, could they steal your car?
Yes and no. So like if somebody steals your phone, for like a minute, they would be able to run out there and jump in and drive away. But I could actually contact Tesla and they could remotely stop the car. And actually there was a friend of mine who, his car was stolen. He left his phone in there. And then from his wife's phone, they actually saw in the app where they were. And he wound up like driving after him and stuff. But right here it says location, 10 Newton Road. And so there it is, there's the map. I can tell exactly where the car is. If it's driving, it tells me how fast it's driving. So if you had a kid who has like, access to the car, you can tell exactly what they're doing in the car.
My husband said no way.
Yeah. It'll even show you on the app, like if the windows are down, if the doors are open, it tells you basically everything about the car. So yeah, super secure.
We did add my son to the app, just so when he goes to the car, it would unlock for him. Not that he's ready to drive or anything.
Right,
but
yeah.
like,
Just for
it was
convenience,
annoying
yeah.
to have to give him my phone so that he could go back to the car.
Right, so now he can
He
get
might
it.
as well he should have access to the car if he needs it.
Right. All Any questions? Yeah?
In 2035, most of Europe is going to go EV. Or they have to retrofit their cars. Is that something that could possibly happen here at some point?
You mean that you cannot buy gas anymore, like gas powered cars? It's possible. I think Europe, it's much more likely to happen in Europe than it is here.
Yeah.
I think people are really attached to their gas cars. And yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. That being said, I think it makes sense to have some sort of ramp down, you know. I think once people have an EV, you really don't want to go back, except for somebody who is an enthusiast or for long haul truckers. You know, like there are some scenarios where I think, and that should be kind of, I think, special case where you still get to do that. But yeah, ultimately, it's just the market will drive it too. Yes? I'm sorry, you next.
I have a real question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on buying used EV versus brand new EV?
Yeah, used versus new. I actually would feel better about buying a used EV than I would a used internal combustion car, because I've had like internal combustion cars that have been abused, or like they didn't do the maintenance, and like, you know, they were flooring it, like they were caused problems with it, and then I inherited somebody else's problems. With the EV, it's like there isn't really much you could do to break it. It's like you could accelerate as much as you want. You're not going to hurt it, and there's no maintenance to it.
What
So.
about the technological differences between used versus an old?
Oh, I mean like I see, like an older one.
Yeah,
Well,
my husband was always like, no, we gotta get new because the technology is always changing and blah, blah, blah.
yeah, when it comes to like, mostly the batteries will be better on a newer model, so you'll get more range. But because most of them are so software connected, they can send updates to them. You still get all those features and things. So like, you know, there isn't a big difference between my car and the 2024 model of Tesla, because I'm still getting all the updates that they're getting. So like in terms of software, it's the same. Their battery might go a little longer. They have a little bit of acceleration, things like that. But it's not a huge difference. If that helps. And yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your presentation very much. I can tell you a professor, you know. And I believe everything you say, and I believe in electric cars. However, I've been driving hybrids the last 7 years and 11. Couple of questions. When you charge it on the road, how much do you pay per kilowatt hour?
It's a good question. I don't know offhand because I never do it, because you would only ever have to do that on a long trip. It's very easy, is what I'll say, is because it's tied to your car. So like if I need to charge, I just drive up to the stall, unhook the thing and plug it in. I don't have to swipe a card. I don't have to type in anything. I don't have to log in or anything like that. It just does it automatically, very, very easy.
The car will tell you how much it is.
But it does tell you, yes, in the car it'll tell you how much it's costing for that session.
It can be highly variable depending on where you are. It could be anywhere from 40 cents
I live here in Woodbridge, like this gentleman. We are paying 37 cents kilowatt.
Right, but it could be, I mean, it could be 40 cents per kilowatt hour. It could be $1.
Yeah.
And it just depends on, at least for me, it depends on who actually is
How big
supplying.
is your battery in your Tesla?
I think it's an 80. It's like a 70, 80, somewhere around there. Maybe 72. It's kind of in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because you said it costs $8 to get to Washington D.C. Later you show like $15 to charge it. I cannot charge it for $15. 70 kilowatt.
Right, yeah, because this was from a few years ago. So I think now it would be more like, well, still charging at home is still probably about $15 or so.
Maybe
20.
Cannot do it.
Oh yeah. I've locked in. Our rate is I think 13 cents per kilowatt.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Versus 37. That's 3 times.
Yeah. There's a Connecticut website where you can choose different suppliers, which I would definitely. I don't have solar currently, but I'm hoping to. Because that'll drive it down even further, and that'll make it less expensive.
The first hybrid we had was a plug-in.
Okay, yes.
And I could charge it at home. 10 kilowatt hours, about $3.70, $3.50. At that time, the gas was around $4. I was really breaking it even.
Yeah.
Because a 10 kilowatts was getting about 30 miles.
Yep.
Well, today, many of the features that you describe in your are available in my present hybrid.
Right.
Not all of them, but some of them, many of them. And we love it. And the car goes average, 64 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, which is great. That's fabulous.
Yeah, 64 miles to the gallon. That means cost me $3 today to drive 64 miles.
Yeah.
If I was charging it at
Which
home,
is very good. Yeah.
it would be more.
It would be more. Yes. Yeah. So I think, and as I had said before to your question too, yeah, if you have a really good hybrid, you won't really be making up a whole lot in the gas versus electricity, but you will make up in terms of the maintenance because you won't have any of the oil changes or the flushes or the belts or any of that stuff.
Yeah, we
and all the
don't have
time
any
that's
because
associated
it's
with it.
included in- This is the last one is Kia Niro.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lovely car. It's the second Niro that we had. First one was Ford C-Max. We love that one too. This one is actually better. The first one we plugged in, and fortunately, Woodbridge had a free charge. So
Yes,
every
yeah,
time
free charging
you
is
did
nice,
library
yeah.
and be charging. All of that, and the car was getting 60 miles per gallon for the life of us, 36,000 miles.
Is it still?
This one's getting 64, but I don't have to charge it at all.
Yeah.
Charge it itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I use region braking all the time. I never use the brakes.
Yep. Yep. Which is good. Yep.
And that recharge.
Yeah.
And very often you can wash it, in Brazil electric.
Yep.
We just love it,
Yeah.
And it was less expensive than full Tesla and so on. But I love what you said about your car, and I believe it. But at the same time, we just love our hybrids.
Hybrids. Yeah. Yeah. I think if you have a good hybrid, I would just keep that for the life of the vehicle. It wouldn't make sense to sell it in order to buy a full EV. But I think once you're at the point where you're ready for a next car, you might as well look into the EV because then you get all the benefits.
I was not a believer. I'm an electrical engineer, and I was not a believer in the electric car because of inconvenience and so on. And then worrying about what if and battery life. Back in 2015, 2016, I got the first one. The reason I got the first one made total sense because Ford at that time gave me $11,000 rebate if I lease it from Ford.
Yeah.
And state of Connecticut gave us $1,500 for the per year. So it was no brainer.
Yeah.
The $34,000 car, which was the top of the line at that time for that one, was about $20,000 and it made sense. And the payments were low and we loved it and we got used to it. The second Kia was also discounted drastically in 19, not anymore because then came a shortage of cars, fortunately 1 year, and now they are discounting very little. But anyway, it still makes sense for us,
Oh sure, yeah.
I don't have to worry about gas. We took 3,500 miles round trip to Nova Scotia with one of them. The first one that was plugged in, never plugged it in.
Yeah.
And 60 miles to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just another
Yeah. Oh yeah.
viewpoint.
Yeah. No, I think if you have a good hybrid, there's a lot of nice ones out there.
And as far as maintenance, it was always every one of our cars has maintenance included. So
Included, right?
it
Yeah.
doesn't cost me anything.
Yeah. So it's not a one size fits all. There are certain scenarios. Like I said, there's other long haul truckers, performance, enthusiasts, motorsports.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, there's still good options.
And this is a small gasoline engine, 1.6.
Oh yeah, technically, yeah.
But because of the electric motor, it has no the torque at all.
Right. Which is
I don't
nice.
need to race it. It's not your Corvette or something,
Right.
but it's fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, they're still fun to drive.
So
Absolutely.
that's another alternative.
Yeah,
in between.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I wouldn't be the person to say oh, you have to sell it. It's no, you like it, keep it. Yeah, absolutely.
Last panic question.
That's it.
I didn't panic, because I happened to buy a car.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really, all right, so not the Tesla, but something else. Highway again, you lose, you have no charge. For some reason, something went wrong, and you just don't have it. I mean, AAA can't come and save you, can they?
Oh, they can. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They have the ability to recharge? Okay.
Well, what they would do is they would probably just flatbed you. They would just pick you up, they'd take the whole car, just bring you out,
Yeah.
and then hook you up.
But they can't, I mean, they can't do anything on site.
They might
Yeah.
now have like, battery packs or something. Like, for example, if somebody came with the Ford F-150 Lightning, it has this ginormous, 30 amp connector, and you can start charging up the car on the side of the road. But most likely for somebody like AAA, they'll just pick you up and just take you to a
Yeah,
charging
right.
station.
But many
It's
EV
like they do now.
Many manufacturers come with the telephone number. You call them
Yeah.
for either 3 or 5, 6 years of free service. They'll come and fix your car, or start you up. So that's something to do. It's-
No, I was wondering that EV versus, am I saying?
ICE, yeah.
ICE, just,
ICE, yeah.
I just don't like the sound of voice right now, but anyway. But, just one versus the other, just the convenience, and again, panic mode, I have to.
Yeah, because people have, it's a totally new way of thinking about it, and how is it going to be different? So these are all legitimate questions, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure. And like I said, I know you guys have been here for a while, but I'm happy to, if you
you've been
guys
great.
want to take a look at the car, feel free to come out with me.
Thank you
can
so
see
much.
this.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. It's always a pleasure to see you. Presentation.
Thank you. No, I'm glad you guys are here. I love the questions. This is great to meet you all.
Thank you.
Great.
Very
Thank
much.
you.